All right, recording has started. So you want to ask that question again, Alexi?
Yeah, I wanted to know if there is a special place where deep dive meetings will be announced for everyone to know if something interesting is coming. For example, tomorrow will be Elasticsearch meeting in a couple of hours, I guess.
That's a good question. Honestly, I'm not sure because typically these invites come as regular calendar invites. So if you didn't receive any, it might be that you are not included in some group which is a target for these events. One thing we have is you can add in Google Calendar GitLab team meetings calendar, GitLab team meetings calendar, and it should contain all this type of company calls.
Is it? From what I've checked, it doesn't contain this very meeting because it only contains repeated team meetings mostly, not deep dive events.
Yeah,
but
maybe.
You could also check, please. Maybe I.
Yeah, you are right that maybe this one is not there. Let me check after the call.
Okay.
With Mario, I can ask him to what list of engineers he sent this invitation, and then maybe we can figure out where to add you.
Okay. Thanks, Jan.
No problem.
Okay. So Jan's going to look into that. Okay, while we're waiting for Andrew, we can jump into some of the team forming questions that I posted in the agenda. So one thing that came up, especially from a couple folks in Europe, setting up an alternating meeting time every other week so that Jingyu can join, because with how distributed our team is, there's probably never going to be a time that we're all in a meeting unless one of us wants to get up in the middle of the night, which I wouldn't ask anybody to do because honestly, I don't want to do it. So I'm all for it, especially getting the developers together on a weekly cadence, or however often you all want it. I would recommend more often, especially now as the team's forming. The one thing I would ask is somebody volunteer to set up that so that they can put their Zoom invite in there so they can do the recording. So I'm not sure if I set it up, if somebody else can do the recording. So are there any other volunteers for setting that up? One of either Alexi, Jan, or Camille, since you're on the call.
I can do this, but I think Camille would be better fit because I'm a temporary member of the team, so it wouldn't be ideal to put to use my Zoom call. But for sure, I can do it if everyone prefers this option.
I will create a meeting and I will add my Zoom account. I guess it's gonna be easier because as you answered, you're intern with us temporarily till the end of the cycle, so you'll not have to change it.
Cool. Thank you, Camille.
Thanks, Camille. And then let's see, we talked about the option of setting up pairing sessions has come up in many of our one-on-ones as well, especially for folks in the EU time zones. Do we want to set any structure for that or just call them as we need them? Alexi, you probably have the strongest opinion on this one.
Yeah, in my opinion, just pinging people, for example, Jan, or asking in the channel is fine. Camille answered me pretty fast. So I don't feel we need to set up some special routine for this, at least for now.
Okay. All right. Sorry, distracted by Camille's typing. The other option of having regular 5 to 10 minute real-time stand-ups, again, for overlapping time zone came up. Is anybody in favor or opposed to this? And again, I would ask maybe someone in that time zone schedule those so you all can get together and do a quick sync for now.
I wonder if there is a reason for synchronized calls, because for me it seems that asynchronous stand-ups work pretty well. So I wonder if there is a reason to change it at first. If not, I would strongly prefer to keep using asynchronous calls, because it keeps all the flexibility of this. So.
Yep. No, it was just brought up, so I figured I'd bring it to the larger group. But if there's not a strong desire for it, then let's not do it. All right. Seems like there's not a strong desire for it. And if it comes back up again, we can talk about it later. So. And then something else that's worked well for distributed teams that I've worked with in the past, and again, this is an option. If there's no desire for it, then we don't need to do it. But just having open channels on Zoom where people can jump in and jump out. So just schedule an hour or two on certain times of the week, even a couple times a week, daily, whatever, so people can join and just talk about what they're working on. And it's all entirely opt-in. You just know that it's open. And it's almost like sitting next to the person you're working with. It's worked really well with a couple other companies I've worked at where we've had folks across the planet, and as they're working on something and they know people are on the channel, they can just ask instead of using Slack. But again, if there's no desire for it, we don't need to set it up.
To be honest, I would like to try. It sounds pretty interesting just to have team dedicated. It's like not like Zoom channel, and for everyone to be able to join the room and sit there and maybe meet someone else. In my previous team, we even tried sometimes to move our one-to-one discussions about the code to this public room for everyone could be able to join and maybe contribute to the discussion. It made like all the communication feel more connected. I don't know. I feel it could be a good idea to try at least.
I wonder, did we had something like similar, Jan, maybe, or Mac, company-wide, like that was outside of the function that we are working?
Yeah, so for the test automation group, our board, we have a weekly call, and it's separated into 2 windows, one for APAC and one for the US and others. And we share the same agenda. It's just a weekly call. And I try to make it not related to work, because you can go to issues in Slack and whatnot just to follow up on the latest status. People should be keeping that up to date as we go along. But those are like the time to get to know your team. What have you been doing for the past week? How was your weekend? All that stuff. So those work really well. And I'll leave it up to Craig how he wants to set the scene here in the call for memory.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. As Mike mentioned, I think that this is a slightly different type of call than Craig meant. We introduced these social calls in Plan Team recently too, and I think it's a good idea. I think it works quite well. So I would suggest to use them for memory too. About the second type of the event, which I think recommend just joining for a few hours on call and staying there if something pops up, like working in one room. I think that there was an email call every day for this, and basically sales department used to do this. I joined it a few times when I was a new hire, but it was slightly different than my department, so it was quite unrelated to me. But I think it's a good idea, so perhaps we can try it out too. So I would
Okay.
I would agree with both calls just to try it, but it depends on others' opinion. It's
Okay. I will take that on. I will create an issue and start an outline of the goals and the structure and length and all those things. And then we can figure out what's going to work best for our team and go from there.
So
Sorry, go ahead.
So just quick note, I did found in our handbook that we have something like random room, which is part of our random channel. There is a link to Hangouts that you can join. And maybe there are other people from the company joining this call. There is a link in our meeting doc. Please, Mike.
There it is.
A minor reminder, Grant is starting next week. So if you want to do any calls, it'll be a good time to start next week as well. So you get to start the ground running with the rest of the team here. And thanks, Sanat, for joining late in your day, Pakistan time.
Yep. Hi, everyone. By the way, I'll take this chance to introduce myself. This is my first meeting. I was scheduled to join last week, but I was out of office. So, yeah, I've been working on the artillery load tests, which would be used by this team. And I believe I'm also here temporarily until Grant joins and he wraps up. So until then, I'll keep working on the performance test suite. Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Sanad.
Nice to meet you.
yeah, welcome.
All right. On to Camille's item, Memory 102 demo.
So I started this discussion point, and like I don't think that I'm gonna be able to prepare myself for this week. So actually, I'm planning to have the one with actually trying to solve some of the problems that it's part of our issue tracker or something like that. That would focus on like measuring performance and the memory consumption of some of the tickets and like showcasing you usage of the different tools that we already have in place, like the Grafana metrics, like the logs that we have, Sentry, what are the things that we have in the code base that makes it easier, like the performance bar, the profiling of the requests, things like that. So basically very hands-on. It's not one-on-one thing, it's very like engineering oriented. But hopefully, like when we do that, you just maybe gonna have some general understanding what may be useful in all other stuff that you're gonna be working on. So it's gonna I'm gonna like propose some time and like send invite to everyone, so you could see like say that this is not the suitable time for me, and if it's gonna be like okay, everyone agrees, like it's gonna be recorded and we just gonna try to do it. Maybe it's gonna be enough, and we're just gonna record. But like, I'm also gonna look for some feedback how we could improve that later, because maybe this should become a deep dive session from the memory team, and maybe we could organize it together. That would be not only for us but also like the company wide, and we could then like instruct like all the new team members to take a look at that and help them get the same amount of the knowledge that we have.
That's great. Thanks, Camille. Yeah, we can add this. If we find it useful, we can add it to our onboarding template that we're building out right now. All right. That's everything on our agenda that doesn't include the document from Andrew. Should we jump over to that or just assume we're going to reschedule once he's able to join?
I'm here.
Oh, hello. Hi, Andrew.
Hello.
You're moving.
I'm just struggling a little bit with my internet, and It's the first day of school holidays, and downstairs my kids are going crazy. So I'm trying to find somewhere that I can talk to you without kids going crazy. There. I think this is a good spot. I think, have I got internet? Yes. Sorry, I'm sorry that I'm late.
It's all right.
And I'm sorry that I missed your meeting, so I didn't really get a chance to listen to what you guys were talking about. But do you want to kind of just move across to the second the second agenda that I put together?
Yes.
So I guess I kind of just jotted down a couple of random thoughts that I'd been thinking about, and the first one is really about the goals. And you guys want Puma and I want Puma, but the reasons that we actually want Puma are very different. And so I think we've got to be clear about that. And I don't think the two goals are necessarily altogether aligned, if you want. Like, for example, the defaults that we'd want to use on GitLab.com, our workers on GitLab.com have got, I think they've got 120 gigs of memory or something crazy like that. So we certainly don't have a memory problem on GitLab.com. And in order to make Puma work fast in that environment, we want to use as much memory as we can. Whereas you guys are using it to kind of constrain memory and use less memory. And so I think that's just something that we need to be aware of. And in order for us to work better together, I think that's something we need to be aware of. I don't know. I haven't actually read through people's notes here.
Andrew, shouldn't that benefit you in the long term? Because if we are able to run at performance with a starved memory, if you increase the headroom in memory, then we should also see performance increase, correct?
Well, like the way that, fundamentally one of the ways that, yes, there certainly are many, many ways in which us using less memory is going to benefit everyone, right? But the tuning parameters that we use on Puma is not one of those areas where there will be sort of an overlap. Like the tuning parameters that we would want to use for to run on across a fleet of 20 machines, and each of those machines has 120 gigs of memory. At least that's a web fleet. We've got the same again for API and the same again for Git. Those parameters in particular are going to be very different. And so, I think where we will have commonalities, we both want to have like very good instrumentation and very good that. And then kind of one of the things I was talking about was like, what goes into Omnibus? Do we choose the kind of the memory starved version for Omnibus, or do we find some sort of in between, or do we go with the kind of beefier instances? I'm guessing it wouldn't be the beefier instances. We'd probably want to sort of focus on a smaller GitLab instance for Puma tuning in as the default. But certainly what works on there is not going to be the same as what works on GitLab.com. And I think it's just a matter of being aware of that.
So also like the very one thing to add, like the Puma is not panacea for the memory problems. It's only a way to make it a little efficient, but it's not gonna solve the memory problems. It's not gonna make the memory difference substantial, but it's gonna open us a like more efficient operation, and it's gonna open us like usage of the different technologies, like for example WebSockets, that may result in the further improvements of our application stack, and basically as an outcome be like easier on the GitLab. Handling cost of the single request, because like the request throughput not gonna increase with Puma. It's like we are bottlenecked by other things that are not related to the memory. It may result in some small reduction on the smaller instances, because in the smaller instances maybe we don't need to run 2 workers, but we may run just one cluster Puma node with like multiple threads, so it's gonna increase the throughput and it's gonna slightly decrease the memory usage. there is like this kind of fine tuning that Andrew you are talking about. That like we don't know what is the balance because we don't know like all the factors how the Puma is behaving, but we're gonna learn exactly how to optimize that. But like Puma just and like I'm trying to tell that to anyone, Puma not gonna like solve the memory issue of GitHub. It might make this a little simpler over time. But like we're not gonna see like substantial difference when we deploy Puma, because applications still gonna use the ton of the memory, still gonna balloon to like 2 gigabytes. That's it. This is how it works. Puma doesn't make it better on that sort. We're not gonna have higher throughput, even though on the smaller instances we may have higher throughput because we're gonna maybe have better vertical utilization of the resources like CPU, because it's much cheaper to run multiple threads than multiple forks.
Yeah, and the way that the like one of the reasons why I'm really excited about it from the infrastructure point of view is like literally the whole day today I've been on an incident call, and the incident that we're dealing with is we are running out of unicorn workers. So something slowed down in the application. We don't know what it is yet. It's not using more CPU, but it's using more I/O. And so each of the sort of finite set of unicorn workers that we got is taking a little bit longer. And on the back of that, other requests are queuing up. And so what I want to be able to do is have a much more elastic cluster where you can spin up a few more threads on each of the Pumas and kind of handle those. And you have a little bit more of an elastic cluster. Obviously, ideally, we want to go to something where we actually have auto scaling, like horizontal auto scaling. But we're not there yet, but having Puma will give us sort of a bit more vertical sort of elasticity in our cluster. And so that's what I'm really excited about. But also I've seen that a lot of the times kind of leading up to handing over a request from Workhorse to Puma is much faster than from Workhorse to Unicorn. Why that is, I don't really know yet, but it definitely seems to be the case. And one of the things that I found super helpful is actually using distributed tracing with this and seeing the steps. So I don't know if you guys are all aware of the distributed tracing that we've got in GDK, and if you've tried it, and I definitely recommend taking a look at it. So in the performance bar, there's a little trace, there's a little label that says trace. And if you click on that, it will bring up Jaeger, and it will kind of pre-fill it with a search for the current correlation ID. And you can go and see stuff stepping through. And, you know, one of the things that's really shocking when you do that is when you go from Workhorse to Unicorn, there'll often be, you know, 100, 200 milliseconds, which is crazy. Like, what's happening in that space of time? And that's just on your local machine that doesn't even have any load yet. So definitely, you know, take a look at that. I guess we've only got a few minutes, so I'm going to quickly move on quite quickly. With the correctness, like, Camille, do you have a sort of feel for, you know, should we just kind of blindly go ahead with this? Or, you know, if you look at the linter, there's a lot of stuff that the linters say is not thread safe. And if you look at a lot of it, clearly isn't thread safe. And on the one hand, this all works in Sidekick. On the other hand, it's a little bit scary. So I don't know if you've got an opinion on this.
I am a little scared of that. I trust Sidekey that it works, but also I think that it requires a little validation, because the code loading in the race is not thread safe. So we may be hiding a lot of these problems because we preload the application ahead of the time. But what happens if we stop preloading on some occasions in order to conserve the memory? So I think that it requires at least annotating that this is the behavior that we have to be aware. So this is actually on my to-do list, to go through all of these offenses and try to understand if this is something that gonna cause us troubles, and yes, in what circumstances. Because it works in the Sidekey, but I guess it works because we just preload the application ahead of the time. And this is basically why it is safe now. We do the same for the Puma, but I am not certain that we're gonna continue preloading the whole application each time. I'm assuming that like we may be, as part of the memory effort, at some point we may say that like we are preloading the crucial parts of the application, but not everything, because these are really used features, and we may just load them on the daemon to conserve the memory. So in such reality, I guess it's gonna be a problem, this thread safeness. I don't think that this is the problem now, but I think that we need to like to go through all of these offenses and at least create the follow-up issues with just being aware that this might be a problem later.
Like, I think one of the things is that we should probably start like giving developers the tools so that they can do things the right way easily. And you know, at the moment, it's just the only way to do things is to kind of stick stuff on a class instance or a class variable. And you know, like if we give people like the tools to do safe initialization, safe lazy initialization, for example, or maybe just tell people that safe lazy initialization is a bad idea. Although that's easy for me with memory to say, not for you.
Just wait for one of my comments. It's not so easy to do it.
No,
I was evaluating like some of the like ideas how we could make this thread safe to be really like these offenses to be really thread safe, but it's like it's way more tricky because it's not very structured, like when it's loaded and how it's loaded and like how it behaves and like what should be the logic if we load in the subsequent threads. Is it like we are locking or not locking, or we are actually creating the local copy? So I think that this problem is like a multidimensional, because like probably we can say that like we have thread unsafe initialization, we have like the class initialization, which provides you like the global context on like on all the class methods that are initialized, but also you have like the class methods that perform some mutation of the data over time. I am most worried about this mutation of the data because the class initialization is mostly safe. But like how we prevent people like using this class mutation, I don't know that. And the tricky part of that, like these problems that we have with this thread safety, they are not easy to catch with the Robocop. That's the problem, I guess, because we cannot really like confidently say in what context it's being executed, but then we get into tricky territory of like runtime like validation, but then we need to have the confidence that all these runtime offenses gonna get caught as part of our testing suite. So
hate to cut you off, but we're right at 8 o'clock and people probably have back-to-back meetings. Don't want to perpetuate the late meeting cycle. Do we need to set up a follow-up meeting to further discuss Andrew's doc? Or do we just continue async? Okay. You want to set that up?
I kind of feel like we need to divide, like we didn't do a very good job of dividing up our work. So I don't know if we can do that asynchronously, possibly. What do you think?
Maybe we'll give it a shot and check in on like Monday or Tuesday and see if
maybe I'll just, yeah. And otherwise I'll join you guys and become a regular at your meetings for a while.
No, that sounds good. All right. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.